All right, UPSC folks, those prelims are coming up, and current affairs, well, they're kind of important.
Absolutely essential, actually. They can really make or break your score.
Exactly. So we're diving deep today into everything from property rights in rural India,
Government finances will even look at India's aerospace tech.
oh, and some tiger relocation drama too,
Plus, we'll tackle a global debate that's been making headlines: wealth tax.
all in a day's work. Let's kick things off in rural India, where the Prime Minister's been busy handing out property cards, like over 50 lakhs under this SVAMITVA scheme.
Yeah, it's been getting a lot of attention, and for good reason. It's a pretty significant initiative.
So break it down for us. What's this SVAMITVA scheme all about?
Well, in a nutshell, it uses drones.
Drones, really?
Yep, drones to map rural properties and provide official ownership records to families who may not have had them before.
So it's about bringing those land ownership records into the 21st century.
Exactly. It's about modernizing a very traditional system.
Okay, but what difference does a piece of paper really make? I mean, it's just a card, right?
Yeah. It's more than just a card. It's a powerful tool. Think about it.
Okay, I'm thinking.
Imagine a farmer who needs a loan for better seeds or equipment. They might not have had any collateral to offer before.
Right, no proof of ownership.
Exactly. But now, with a property card, they can access financial resources that were previously out of reach. It's a game changer for rural economies.
Wow, that's a great point. So it's not just about recognizing ownership, it's about empowering people.
Precisely. It's about giving people the tools they need to thrive.
Okay, so that's the SVAMITVA scheme. But how does this impact things on a larger scale?
Think beyond the individual farmers. With clear property titles, local governments can actually implement property taxes more effectively.
Oh, so more revenue for rural areas.
Exactly, which means better infrastructure and services. Plus, it makes resolving land disputes so much easier. All of this feeds into effective rural planning and development.
Okay, so the SVAMITVA scheme isn't just about giving out cards. It's about transforming rural India from the ground up.
You got it.
All right, let's switch gears now to the CAG. They've been in the news a lot lately. What's their deal?
The CAG, the Comptroller and Auditor General of India. They're essentially the financial watchdog for the government, making sure public money is spent responsibly.
So they're the ones who expose those big financial scandals we hear about.
They play a key role in that. They audit how the government spends money, and then they submit reports to the president or governor.
And those reports often make headlines, right?
They sure do. And they can even trigger investigations and debates in Parliament.
So the CAG is all about transparency and accountability in the government.
Absolutely. They're a crucial part of our democracy.
Got it. Now for something a bit more exciting, India's very own Kaveri engine just got cleared for in-flight testing.
It's a major milestone, for sure. The
Yeah.
Kaveri, developed by DRDO, was initially meant to power the Tejas fighter jet.
Yeah, I remember hearing about that.
Well, it faced some challenges along the way, but now it's all set for its debut in the sky.
And get this. This engine is going to power the Gatak Stealth UCAV program.
The Gatak?
Yeah. That's Unmanned Combat Aerial Vehicle for those who are still brushing up on their defense acronyms.
Right. So India is making big strides in unmanned technology.
Exactly. And this is a huge e-boost for India's national security and self-reliance.
It's a significant step towards reducing our dependence on other countries for critical technologies.
It's like, remember when India sent those spacecraft to the moon and Mars? This feels just as big to me. Okay, now let's talk about some tiger relocation drama. Madhya Pradesh is moving 15 tigers to other states.
Yeah, it's an interesting case of balancing conservation with managing human-wildlife conflict.
So they're trying to avoid those situations where tigers stray into villages and things get messy.
Exactly. They're moving 12 tigresses and 3 tigers to Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, and Odisha.
Wow, and these tigers are coming from some pretty famous reserves like Kanha, Bandhavgarh, and Pinch.
Oh, yeah, those are the big names in Indian wildlife tourism.
Kan's the one known for saving the Barsinga, right?
That's right. A rare deer species. Bandhavgarh's got the highest density of tigers in the world.
And Pinch. That's where Rudyard Kipling got his inspiration for the Jungle Book.
Exactly. So we're talking about relocating some pretty iconic tigers here.
It must be quite a challenge to move them safely and make sure they adapt to their new homes.
It is, and it raises a question that could easily pop up on your UPSC exam. How do we balance the needs of growing tiger populations with the risks of human-wildlife conflict?
Okay, that's definitely something to think about. Now let's tackle another complex issue that's been making headlines. Wealth tax. Should India bring it back?
It's a hot-button topic for sure. Wealth tax, unlike income tax, is levied on the total value of your assets, your cash, property, shares, everything.
So it's basically saying if you've got a lot, you contribute a bit more to help those who have less.
That's the general idea. It's about redistributing wealth and reducing inequality.
Didn't India abolish this back in 2015, though?
Yes, it was replaced with a surcharge on high earners.
So what are the arguments for and against bringing it back?
Well, some argue that it discourages investment and is hard to manage. Others say it's essential for social justice.
Classic UPSC dilemma. Analyzing the pros and cons of a complex issue.
Exactly, and that's what the exam is all about. It's not about having a right or wrong answer. It's about understanding the nuances and different perspectives.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here. Now let's move on to a more serious topic. The NHRC has stepped in to investigate the rising suicide rates among tribal communities in Kerala. This is heartbreaking.
It is a very concerning issue. The NHRC, or National Human Rights Commission, is a statutory body that protects human rights in India.
So they're like the voice for the voiceless.
You could say that. They have the power to investigate violations and recommend actions to the government.
And the situation in Kerala is dire, with 23 suicides this year alone.
It highlights the challenges and systemic issues faced by marginalized communities.
Absolutely. It's a reminder that we need to do more to address these inequalities and protect the rights of all citizens.
Couldn't agree more.
Okay, let's shift gears for a moment to something a bit more uplifting. The Prime Minister recently participated in an event for Veer Baal Diwas.
Veer Baal Diwas.
It's a day to remember the sacrifice of two young heroes, Baba Fateh Singh and Zorawar Singh.
Oh, right. The sons of Guru Gobind Singh, the 10th Sikh guru.
Exactly. They were captured by mobile forces and refused to abandon their faith.
A powerful story of courage and conviction.
It's incredible how their story continues to resonate centuries later.
It speaks to the enduring power of faith and the importance of standing up for what you believe in.
Absolutely. And speaking of Guru Gobind Singh, he's a key figure to know for the prelims. He founded the Khalsa and led the Sikh community through some really challenging times.
Definitely worth brushing up on his contributions to Sikhism.
All right, last topic for this part of our deep dive, India's role in global peacekeeping. The UN just honored Brigadier General Amitabh Jha from India for his service with UNDOF at the Golan Heights.
It's a great recognition of India's long-standing commitment to international peace and security.
We've consistently been one of the top contributors to UN peacekeeping missions around the world.
And UNDOF is a particularly challenging mission. The United Nations Disengagement Observer Force was established back in 1974 to maintain the ceasefire between Israel and Syria in the Golan Heights.
The Golan Heights. That's a geopolitical hotspot if I've ever heard of one.
It's a volatile region with a long and complex history of conflict, and the fact that India is one of the top contributors to this mission shows our dedication to global peace.
It also shows the trust the international community places in India's peacekeeping capabilities.
Absolutely. India is seen as a reliable and capable partner in maintaining peace and stability around the world.
It makes you realize that the world is watching and India is stepping up to play a vital role.
It's a proud moment for India and a reminder of the important role we play on the global stage.
Well, that's a wrap for part one of our deep dive today. We've covered a lot of ground from rural India to global peacekeeping. But don't worry, there's more to come.
We'll be back with part 2, where we'll delve even deeper into these topics and uncover even more insights to help you ace those UPSC prelims.
So stay tuned, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a like if you're finding this deep dive helpful. We're here to help you navigate the vast sea of current affairs and conquer those UPSC prelims.
You know, it's amazing how these current events tie into so many different parts of the UPSC syllabus.
Yeah, it's like a giant puzzle, and each news headline is another piece that helps us understand the bigger picture.
Exactly.
So we talked about the SVAMITVA scheme bringing clarity to land ownership in rural areas. But what about cities? Property rights in urban areas can get pretty complicated, right?
Oh, absolutely. Urban areas have their own unique challenges when it comes to property rights.
Like what kind of challenges?
Well, think about rapid urbanization leading to unplanned growth, encroachment on public land, disputes over ownership.
Yeah, it's easy to imagine how things can get messy in a crowded city.
Exactly. And that's where having clear and accurate land records becomes crucial, just like the SVAMITVA scheme is doing for rural areas.
So we need something similar for urban spaces.
Right, because without those records, it's tough to govern and manage a growing city effectively.
Makes sense. I mean, how do you plan infrastructure projects or expand public spaces if you don't know who owns what?
Precisely. And it's not just about government planning either. Secure property rights can empower vulnerable communities in cities.
By giving them a sense of security and a foundation for economic advancement.
Exactly.
This makes me wonder, how can we use technology to make land record management in cities more efficient?
That's a great question, and it's something policymakers are grappling with right now.
So are there any solutions on the horizon?
Well, there's a lot of talk about using digital platforms, sophisticated mapping tools, maybe even blockchain technology to create systems that are easier to use and harder to manipulate.
Interesting. So technology could be the key to solving these urban property rights puzzles.
It could definitely play a major role.
All right, let's circle back to our tiger relocation story for a moment. We know Madhya Pradesh is moving those tigers, but what are the ecological considerations involved?
That's a key area from a UPSC perspective.
So what do we need to keep in mind?
Well, first you have to assess the carrying capacity of the receiving ecosystem. Can it support a new tiger population? Are there enough prey animals? Suitable habitat?
It's like finding the perfect new home for a very demanding tenant.
Exactly. And then there's genetic diversity to consider. You want to introduce new genes into the existing population to ensure its long-term health.
So it's not just about moving any tiger. It's about finding the right tiger for the right environment.
Right.
Okay, so there's a lot more to it than I initially realized.
And don't forget the monitoring aspect. After the tigers are relocated, scientists need to track their movements, behavior, and breeding patterns.
To see if the program is actually working.
Exactly. It's a long-term commitment requiring research collaboration between states and, of course, funding.
Fascinating. Okay, let's shift our focus back to the CAG. We talked about their role in auditing government spending. But what happens when their reports reveal something fishy?
Well, that's when things can get really interesting.
Like, what do you mean?
When their reports highlight potential mismanagement or corruption, they become the basis for further scrutiny and action.
So they're like the investigative journalists of the financial world.
I like that analogy. They dig deep, uncover the facts, and present them to Parliament or the state legislatures.
And those reports can lead to some serious consequences, right?
Absolutely. They can spark heated debates, lead to questions being asked of the government, even trigger full-blown investigations.
Wow. So the CAG might not have the authority to prosecute anyone directly, but they can certainly make some waves.
Exactly. They shine a light on wrongdoing and get the ball rolling for accountability.
It's a powerful check on those in power. And it highlights the importance of transparency in governance.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's zoom out a bit and look at the global picture. We discussed the wealth tax debate in India. But how are other countries tackling the issue of wealth inequality?
That's a great question because there's no one-size-fits-all approach.
So what are some of the different approaches out there?
While some countries like France, Portugal, and Spain have embraced wealth tax as a way to redistribute wealth.
Makes sense. But I bet there's some who disagree with that approach.
Oh, there are definitely critics. They argue that wealth tax can discourage investment and lead to wealthy individuals moving their assets elsewhere.
The classic flight of capital argument.
Exactly. They also point to the fact that wealth tax can be difficult to administer effectively.
So there are valid points on both sides of the debate.
Absolutely. It's a complex issue with no easy answers, and it's the kind of topic that UPSC loves to throw at you.
Okay, time for a quick mental break from all this serious stuff. We talked about those famous tiger reserves, Kanha, Bandhavgarh, and Pench. What makes them so special for tourists?
Oh, they're truly magical places. Each one offers something unique, but they all share one thing in common, the thrill of spotting a Bengal tiger in the wild.
I can only imagine the excitement.
It's an experience you don't forget.
So besides the tigers, what else do these parks have to offer?
Well, Kanha is known for its vast grasslands, and the rare Barasinga Bandhavgarh has a more dramatic landscape with rocky terrain and dense vegetation.
And Pench, what's special about that one?
Pench is a birdwatcher's paradise with a diverse mix of forests, rivers, and meadows.
Sounds like a nature lover's dream.
It is, and let's not forget the vital role these parks play in conservation research and community engagement.
Right, it's about supporting the local communities who depend on tourism for their livelihoods.
Exactly. Responsible tourism can be a powerful force for positive change.
Okay, our brains have had a little vacation. Now let's dive back into a more serious topic. We discussed the NHRC's intervention in the issue of tribal suicides in Kerala. What more can be done to address the root causes of this tragedy?
That's the question everyone's asking, and The answer is complex.
Because it's not just one issue, it's a whole web of interconnected problems.
Exactly. We need a multifaceted approach that addresses the social, economic, and cultural factors that contribute to this despair.
So it's about understanding the unique challenges faced by tribal communities.
Absolutely. Issues like land alienation, poverty, lack of access to education and healthcare, and, of course, social discrimination.
It's heartbreaking.
It is, and we need to do more to empower these communities and create a more inclusive society.
What specific steps can be taken?
Well, there are government schemes and programs targeted at tribal welfare. The key is to ensure those resources actually reach those who need them the most.
It's about accountability and transparency in governance.
Right, and it can't just be the government's responsibility. Civil society organizations, NGOs, and community leaders all have a crucial role to play.
It has to be a collective effort.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's switch gears for a moment. We talked about Veer Baal Diwas and the sacrifice of those two young heroes. But how do we ensure that their story continues to inspire future generations?
That's a great question. It's about keeping their memory alive, not just through annual commemorations, but by weaving their story into the fabric of our society.
So it's not just about remembering what happened, it's about understanding why it matters even today.
Exactly. Imagine history textbooks that bring their story to life, not just dry facts and dates, but a narrative that captures their bravery.
I love that. What else can we do?
Think about school plays that reenact their courage, community discussions that explore the historical context and the timeless values their sacrifice represents.
So it's about making history come alive, connecting those events to the challenges we face today.
And we can even link their story to contemporary issues, encourage young people to find their own voice, fight for causes they believe in.
It's about turning history into a source of inspiration, not just a collection of facts.
Exactly.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today, but there's still so much more to explore. We'll be back with part 3 of our deep dive, where we'll uncover even more insights and connect the dots between these seemingly unrelated headlines. So stay tuned. All right, welcome back for the final part of our deep dive. You ready to wrap things up?
Absolutely. Let's do it.
So in part 2, we were talking about those two young heroes, Baba Fateh Singh and Zorawar Singh, and how to keep their story alive.
Yeah, their sacrifice really makes you think.
It does. It makes you wonder how we can use their story to promote interfaith harmony.
Especially in today's world, where those values are sometimes challenged.
Exactly. Their story reminds us that true faith should inspire compassion and respect for everyone.
Regardless of their beliefs.
Right. It's not about converting others. It's about recognizing the inherent dignity of every human being.
Absolutely. And I think their story can be a powerful tool for promoting understanding between different communities.
So how do we make that happen? How do we ensure their story contributes to a more tolerant society?
Well, we could start by incorporating their story into school curriculums, not just as a historical event, but as a lesson in interfaith dialogue.
This is like encouraging students from different backgrounds to discuss the story's themes.
Exactly. Themes like courage, conviction, and standing up for what's right, even in the face of adversity.
I love that idea. It goes beyond just memorizing facts. It encourages critical thinking and empathy.
Right. And we could also use art, literature, and film to bring their story to life.
Reach a wider audience that way.
Exactly. We could also organize interfaith events and dialogues using their story as a starting point.
Create those spaces for meaningful conversations.
Exactly. It's all about breaking down barriers and emphasizing our shared humanity.
Well said. Okay, let's shift gears now and talk about India's role in UN peacekeeping. We discussed Brigadier General Jha's recognition for his service in UNDOF.
Right, a well-deserved honor.
It is. But beyond individual contributions, what are some of the broader challenges these peacekeeping missions face?
Well, peacekeeping is definitely becoming more complex as conflicts evolve.
In what way?
Well, we're seeing more interstate conflicts fueled by ethnic tensions and political instability.
So it's not just about traditional wars between countries anymore.
Right. It's a lot messier and harder to resolve.
And these conflicts often involve non-state actors, militias, and armed groups, right?
Exactly, which makes it really tough to establish clear lines of communication.
And to negotiate peace agreements.
Exactly. It's not like dealing with a traditional army where there's a clear chain of command.
So how do peacekeepers adapt to these new realities?
Well, one challenge is mandate creep. Peacekeeping missions are often given expanded mandates.
Meaning?
Well, they might be tasked with things like nation building, disarmament, and human rights monitoring.
So it goes beyond just monitoring ceasefires and providing security.
Right. It can become a lot to handle.
especially with limited resources.
Exactly. And funding is always a challenge for UN peacekeeping operations.
It's a constant struggle to get the support they need.
It is.
So what can India do beyond sending troops to contribute to a more peaceful world?
While India can leverage its unique experience and become a leading voice for peace on the global stage.
We've got a long tradition of nonviolence and a strong commitment to multilateralism.
Exactly. And we've got a lot of experience in mediating conflicts both domestically and internationally.
So we can share our expertise and encourage peaceful resolution through dialogue and mediation.
Exactly. It's about being a peacemaker, not just a peacekeeper.
And we can also contribute to post-conflict reconstruction.
Help build those bridges and create conditions for lasting peace.
Okay, last but not least, let's talk about the Kaveri engine. We've talked about its technological significance, but what about the economic implications?
Well, the Kaveri engine is a game changer for India's aerospace and defense industries.
It reduces our dependence on foreign suppliers,
Saves us money and boosts our self-reliance.
and it creates jobs and strengthens our industrial base.
It's a win-win situation.
It also opens up the possibility of exporting our technology to other countries.
Exactly. We can become a major player in the global defense market.
All right, folks, that brings us to the end of our deep dive. We've covered a lot of ground today, from rural property rights to peacekeeping missions and everything in between,
It just goes to show how interconnected these current events really are.
and how they can be a springboard for exploring so many different topics relevant to the UPSC exam.
So keep those brains buzzing and keep connecting those dots.
And don't forget to like and subscribe for more deep dives tailored for UPSC success.
Until next time, best of luck with your prep.
And remember, it's not just about acing the exam. It's about understanding the world around you.
And using that knowledge to make a difference.
Well said. See you next time.